Hey guys, and welcome to Geeking with Gideros. Today we are going to take a look at scaling modes. So last week we finished off by making a texture pack and we put a single image on it. That wasn't too hard, and I did say that I was going to get into scaling modes. After this we should be able to proceed pretty much with working on the simple game that I talked about in the previous episodes. One more thing we'll have to do in the next couple of sessions will be playing around with Scene Manager. But that's pretty straightforward, so shouldn't take too long. So today's session, just the scaling modes. Now I've got a page open here already. If you guys are wondering how to get to it, just go to resources, go to documentation, and click on automatic screen scaling. Okay, so I've already opened it up here, so I'll just close that. That was pointless. Now I'm going to do my best to explain these the way I understand them. Okay, so as I usually tell you guys, you don't need Flash or Adobe Animate as it is called now to do any of this stuff. It is just for me to visually show you how these things work. So this is a 320 by 480 stage here. Okay, this is it at 100% on a 1920 by 1080 screen. So this is a 1080 by 1920 in portrait mode, and I'm going to show you what it looks like at 100%. So this is how big the screen is. So it's basically the computer screen that we're working with flipped into portrait. Okay, so I'm just going to make it 25 again. So that's just a quick example of what it looks like. Now what I'm going to do now is make a little box. I'm going to keep it red, and we're going to make this box 320 by 480. I did talk about that this was the safest ratio to use, in my opinion. That lends itself to scaling across all sorts of devices. Okay, so I think that this is a really good one to use. You guys might want to do something different. I'm just showing you the way I work and what makes sense to me. Now I'm going to just group this. Okay, and we're going to center it. So this is a 320 by 480 screen displayed on a 1080 by 1920 screen, which is full HD. So we're going to get into the first scaling mode. First scaling mode is called no scale. So no scaling simply tells your application not to scale at all. In this mode there's no scaling at all, and your stage sits on the upper left corner of the device screen. So if we are going to use the scaling mode and you are running your game on an HD device, a full HD device, 1920 by 1080 or 1080 by 1920, depending what mode, landscape or portrait you're running in, this is what you would see. Your game content would sit in the corner like this. Pretty simple. Okay, next one, no scale center. So this is pretty much exactly the same thing, only the content will be centered. All right, so this is what it's going to look like. Next up we have pixel perfect. This mode is similar to no scale center with a minor difference. Scale value is rounded to values like 1/3, half, 1, 2, 3. This mode can be used in games which benefit from pixel art games. It guarantees a crisp look and feel for screen sprites. So things are going to get scaled so pixel games and pixels remain sharp. There will be no half sizes. So basically, like they said, we are going to scale this. For example, the next one would be something like 640 by 960. Okay, the next one would be something like, so we've had 320, we'll just, next one is going to be 960. There you go. And this is the closest the game would be scaled on an HD screen. This would be the space that would be remaining. And I'm pretty sure that in Gideros, this would show up as either white space, or if you had more showing past your stage, if you design your graphics a little bit bigger, I'm pretty sure that those would show outside here. Okay, so that's what I think would happen. I haven't actually tested this myself, but that's the way the letterbox, which is the one we're going to talk about next, works. So basically, this is your stage. So again, 320 by 480. Okay, this is the game size you're working with in Gideros. So if we have a look at Gideros itself, okay, and here are your properties. Under graphics, you will see this is the one we're working with. Okay, now that doesn't mean that you can't design or put graphics outside of these dimensions. Now those graphics won't show up if there is no space left. So let's say this is centered. As far as I know, the graphics that are outside of your stage would show up over here. Okay, excuse me. And like I said, if this was scaled up to 960 in the center, then if you had some stuff on the outside, it would fill up the screen nicely. So this is a way to get nice crisp graphics while still filling up the screen. Now, again, this is how I understand Gideros works and does this. I haven't tested the pixel mode. I've only tested the letterbox mode. So give it a go, and I am pretty sure that it is what I think. Okay. The problem with a lot of these things is that if you are designing screen-to-screen games, you might not be able to have extra stuff on the side because you need limits on your screen. So let's say your character walks over here and you need him to leave and go to the next screen. So sometimes it doesn't work, especially if you're doing like, as you see, if you were doing a landscape game and you have your character walking down here, there's a lot of space left. And so, you know, there are some really wide devices. There are some other devices that are a lot narrower. So sometimes it's nice to be able to have actual limits on your screen, and that's where the next mode comes in. Basically the letterbox mode will fill up until it hits boundaries. Okay, we're going to talk about it now. Preserving the aspect ratio, it scales the stage. Preserving the aspect ratio, it scales the stage so it fits the content on the device screen. There's a possibility that blank areas may occur on the device. Mostly, developer keeps the background a bit bigger in order to eliminate these blank areas and fill it with background. So I have a feeling this is the same in Pixel Perfect, but I could be wrong. Again, I might have to test this in the future and just let you guys know, unless you want to test it yourselves, okay? But Letterbox, in my view, is the most useful mode out of all of these. You might want something else, but I think Letterbox is the most useful. Now, normally in other game engines and on iPhone, Letterbox sometimes means something different. It's still, like they say here, there's a possibility that blank areas may occur on the device. So far in other engines, what I've noticed that when they say letterbox, it means that you're gonna get white or black bars, okay? And it won't show anything outside of what your game stage is. However, Gideros does this differently, which is absolutely brilliant because it does allow you to show stuff outside. This makes things really simple. So I'll show you how this works. So we've got your original game size. With Letterbox, what would happen is we've got a 1080 wide screen here in portrait mode. So we're going to scale this to 1080. Now we're going to center it. This is exactly what would happen in Letterbox, okay? It would just fill it up until it hits the sides. It would leave the top and bottom. If you had your background a little bit bigger, this would all be filled up. All right. Now, what would happen if, let's say, you had portrait-sized stage, game stage, but you wanted to fit it to a landscape device or a device in landscape mode. So if this was the case, if your game was set to landscape, but this was your size, which is really a weird way of doing it. I'm just trying to explain something, okay? As far as I know, what would happen is it would again just go until it hits the limits, okay? So what would happen in this case, as far as I understand, it would hit the top and bottom first, and it would leave the sides, okay? That's how I understand this. Now, I'm not actually sure if you can set the stage to... yeah, you can. So what you can do is I could, for example, set my size to 480 by 320, okay? But then I could, yeah. So set it to that, but I can actually set the orientation to portrait. So actually what I'm saying is possible. It's illogical to do it that way, I think, but yeah, it is possible. This is mainly for demonstration purposes, okay? This is what would happen. So there are cases when screens have really weird sizes, okay? So for example, let's say that you are working with a screen that was 1080 by 1080, okay? I don't think there are any devices that are that size, but let's just say there are. Now, what would happen if you wanted to scale your game to this size? Again, it would hit the, because of your game stage being taller than wider, it would hit the top and bottom first. Wait a second, I'm looking wrong keys. Okay, it would hit the top and bottom first. And this is what it would look like, okay? So I'm just giving you guys a really quick rundown of how these things work. Hopefully this visual way of doing it is handy and is a little bit clearer than just talking about it or drawing it on paper or something, because I can actually show you how really quickly and change things, and you know, so hopefully you guys are understanding from this sort of method. Right, I am going to now reset this again to our original size. Okay, and we're going to go to the next mode. So again, Letterbox is our preferred option. This is what I use all the time. Now, crop. This mode again does preserve the aspect ratio and ensures there are no blank areas left on the screen. Hence, some part of the background might be outside of the visible area. So the way I understand this works is that this is going to scale up until there are no blank spaces. So this is basically what would happen in this case, more or less, okay? It would scale up until nothing is blank and you might lose some of your game content. So this is not necessarily ideal for game design. But there might be reasons for why you want to use this mode. I haven't really thought of one personally where I would use this, but I'm sure there are always instances where you might need this mode. Stretch. The whole stage sits on the screen. Basically, I'm just not going to read this because it's really simple and it means just that. You are going to stretch more or less until you fit the screen. Now, you might think, wow, that's the best mode of them all. However, the problematic thing is, let's say we're going to add a circle in the middle of this. So let's make the circle yellow. And we're going to put it in the middle. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing that I just showed you using the stretch mode. And if you have a quick look, this is what will happen to your images. They will be distorted, okay? So while stretch looks like a really good option, because you don't have to provide backgrounds that are bigger, etc., etc., your graphics will end up looking skewed, and that might not be ideal. Your game might not look the best. It might look very different on some devices to other devices, and it will be very inconsistent. So again, up to you if you want to use this mode, but again, I'm not a very big fan of it, okay? It is a quick and dirty mode that works, but not a fan personally of the stretch mode. Now, fit width and fit height. These are basically like Letterbox. But if you remember how I changed the orientation in Letterbox, these ones let you control where you want the scaling to happen, okay? That it's as simple as that. So if we're going to go fit width, we are going to scale until this happens, okay? If we're going to fit height, we are going to scale until this happens. Okay? Really basic. You are telling it to scale by either the width or the height. Is there anything more to it? Yep. That's pretty much it. Yep. I'm just going to read this out because it's the one that gives the most explanation. This mode fits the width of the stage, preserving the aspect ratio. It's possible that there might be blank areas at the top and bottom of the screen, or these areas might be outside of the visible area. If you have more than one screen in your application, the screen transition from left to right, or vice versa, this mode is a perfect fit for you. Okay. That is, if you have more than one screen in your application, screen transition. Okay, I think, yeah. So there, I think possibly talking, I'm not really sure what this is referring to. I think it might be talking about scenes, but let's not get into that. It's not important. So that is basically how those modes work. So out of all these modes, guys, to me, the one that makes the most sense and the one that is possibly the easiest to set up while still making your game look good across the board is the Letterbox mode. That is the one that I choose to use. Again, in other engines, this might not be referred to as Letterbox. In Gideros, it is. As I said, in other engines, Letterbox usually means there are black bars on the sides or the top. And for example, I know that in Construct 2, there is a mode called Scale Outer or Scale Inner, that sort of thing, which are sort of like fit width, fit height. And Letterbox means just what I explained before. So there's another engine called Stencil Letterbox, and that also means black bars on top and bottom. But in Gideros, it means those black bars will not, that blank space will be filled up with things that are outside of your game area, okay? So if you place things, just make your background a little bit bigger, that will be visible if there is any extra space. So that is the best mode. So what we're going to do for today's session, simple as that, is we're going to go into Properties, Graphics, and we're going to click, not there, we're going to select Letterbox and click OK. Now this is all I want you guys to do for today's session. There was way more explanation than actually doing stuff in Gideros, but this was a really important session so you guys can understand how these scaling modes work, because it will then let you, for your own games, pick what is the best fit for you. I keep saying, for me, Letterbox, absolutely, but somebody else might feel a very different way. Again, I'm just showing you mainly how I work and what makes sense to me. So hopefully you guys understood what I was trying to explain. Hope you had a good session, and I will see you guys next time.